Happy Monday afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Fly Like an Eagle podcast. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Joeyshakes72. But before I get to him, I just want to tell you guys, I love Eagles Nation. You know this from the bottom of my heart. I think you guys are the smartest fans in the world. I think you guys are the most passionate fans in the world. We butt heads sometimes, understandable, but what a fucking game yesterday, honestly. This game was one of those games where you look back on at the end of the season and say, that's the game that won us the Super Bowl right there. You know, the determination, the adversity with Smitty going down on that football play. Unfortunately, it was a football play. You guys could disagree with that. Definitely a football play, but he went down. Hopefully he's okay. We came back. Dallas Goedert had 170 yards catching through the air. You can't ask for much more than that. And going forward, I just hope this team brings it every single Sunday with everything they've got. And then we're back in the playoffs. So without further ado, what's up, Scotty? What's up, Joey?
What's going on? What's going on, Kyle? Awesome to have Joey on the show today. Can't wait to get his takes. Kyle, I will give you credit. After that debacle against Atlanta, you did keep the faith, kept the positivity, and the birds came through. Now, this game was so weird. It was 3-0 until late into the fourth quarter. I mean, who saw that coming? This was to be a high-flying, explosive game. But the Eagles got it done. I'll obviously let our special guest Joey talk. Joey, so good to have you on the show. And what did you think about, honestly, the season so far? It's been a roller coaster ride already. And then that just strange game yesterday beating the Saints.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been a roller coaster, and I think it comes down to the turnover game with Jalen Hurts, and a lot of new faces in the defense. Some of the easy layup decisions, what I mean, when it comes to scoring some of these field goals, some of these, just trying to get some points on the board, so you're not putting too much pressure on your offense later on. And it seems like that's really been the biggest problem. And because of the new faces in your defense, and trying to figure out things, like I think Vic Fangio just need a little bit of time to make some adjustments. It seems like this is a defense, like you had a sack of this game, but with Jordan Davis, but you really haven't had that this much of a shutdown type defense the last few years. I mean, it seems like the corners are playing fast, the fast break tackles, the defensive line is getting pressure. They bench Bryce Huff in the game. He's just been absolutely horrible with even this last game. He had 16, 17 snaps. He's got 2 assisted tackles for the last 3 games. It's been ridiculous. But I think, the offense barely runs with Saquon Barkley the first half, which I don't get why. I get it. Kenneth Gainwell had more opportunities in this game, which he really shouldn't have. I'm not going to kill Jalen Hurts too much in this game. I know the turnovers were bad. But with his statistics, you would have thought the Eagles would have scored a little bit more in this game. But because of those last-minute decisions, 4 decisions from Nick Sirianni, you'd rather, Jake Elliott kick the 60-yard field goal than, than just punt the ball away and give over, just the field in general. I give Jalen Hurts a little bit more credit in this game because, he stayed in the pocket a lot more in this game. He wasn't rolling out. He rolls out, you're giving away 83% of the field. Kind of, the play's kind of going down at that point. But I think this is a game that they could definitely build upon, and I think the Eagles need this bye week badly. Week 5, I think they definitely need it. But can the offense change? I feel like I'm seeing 2 different offenses going forward, but I think we'll get into more of that. But I think this is definitely they could definitely build off of it, no doubt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with everything you literally just said. It was, like I said before, it was a great game because it showed that this defense is for real. A lot of people last week blamed the defense for how we lost, but I keep telling Scotty over there that, the 2-minute drill is tough to defend. It's one of the toughest drills to defend in football. You're on your heels. They're going to be throwing the ball. You just don't know where. And that's why I wasn't worried. I wasn't worried going into this game because, number one, I thought the Saints were playing way above their heads. I don't think they're that good of a football team. I really don't. Alvin Kamara is a stud. But like I told Scotty last week, I was like, just load the box, make our corners go on Olave and Shaheed, shut them down. And that's exactly what they did. Now, granted, Alvin Kamara still got his points. He's still got his stats because he's a fucking monster, like I said. But, at the end of the day, it takes a really well put together team, even without their best players, to win that football game. You know, it did take some luck. I will admit it took some luck with that pick play, 3rd and 16. I understand that. But at the end of the day, we found a way to win, and Saquon Barkley was as big as advertised going into the season. This guy's an absolute monster. Should be an MVP candidate, in my opinion. And, you know, I can't wait to see how this team just thrives going down the road in the season. We're going to have some tough games. Granted, we are. But top to bottom, this team reminds me a lot of the 2017 team. They really fucking do. And
Wow.
I cannot wait to see this team just put everything together.
Yeah, Derek Carr, I mean, he didn't show up yesterday. Obviously, the D-line was all over the place, but all we heard all week was that the D-line sucks and they're not talented enough. So I'm glad that they showed up. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, they played like first-round picks. Old man Graham was all over the field. Obviously, like Joey said, they pulled Bryce Huff. And Kyle, you said that he should be turned back into what the Jets were using him as was that rotational piece, even though we're paying him to be a top 10 defensive end in the league, which is a problem. But again, just to get this win was so important because 2-1 is a lot better than 1-2. And I'm also going to piggyback off of what Joey said. We have the early bye, which usually nobody likes, but going to Brazil and then going to New Orleans and Tampa next week, that's a lot. I mean, technically that's one home game in 5 weeks. We finally, honestly, we play Cleveland, mid-October, I believe.
Yes.
We have like 2 or 3 home games technically until the end of November. Like that's actually insane when you actually think about it. Obviously, because the game in Brazil counted as a home game for us, whatever. Can't believe they still even agreed to that, especially with this fan base and just everything that goes into that.
Yeah.
But again, it was just so good to get this win. The biggest head scratcher for me with the Sirianni decisions, because obviously that's a hot topic this week, was before halftime going forward on 4th and 1 with 10 seconds left. That just made absolutely no sense in any world. I even go back to with Kyle, just like playing Madden sometimes. Like we all grew up, so we all kind of know those decisions to make just from freaking a video game. And again, it's 3-0 at that point. Why would you not just tie it to go into halftime?
You want to know why they didn't just tie it to go into halftime? Because we were too cocky and we relied on our offense to do the work. You know, we were in the Super Bowl.
You would have had to take a timeout if you got the first down. The clock's running, so then you would have had 9 or 8 seconds to left just for Jalen to just try and throw it in the end zone. It didn't really make that much sense. It's not like you had like 30 seconds left. You had 10 seconds.
Well, the only thing that I could take from that didn't make any sense is that we don't try 2 field goals at the lower end of our field, but when it's a 60-yarder, he had no problem doing it. That's the only bad takeaway I think.
He was all over the place with the decisions. Was basically the point.
It wasn't a great
coach. That one just made no sense at all. Do you agree with that,
in my honest opinion, that was Nick Sirianni's worst coach game of his Philadelphia Eagles career, and it came in a win. So
barely.
Because the defense played so great, and I think he went forward so much. I think he was more aggressive. I mean, he's more aggressive because the defense was playing. They were lights out. I mean, they held them to 3 points. I mean, 3 points through a few quarters. I mean, it's absolutely amazing what they did. But he's got to be smarter than that. You know, Derek Carr, only threw 15 times in the Dallas Cowboys game. I mean, that's all he did. I mean, I don't think he's a great quarterback. I've never been a Derek Carr fan at all. I think they, 92, 91 points in 2 games. It didn't really scare me too much because I'm like, if the Eagles don't get pressure, this is going to be a long day. And Alvin Kamara, like you said, is a total beast. We all know that. Really, their bread and butter is that run game. But the way they used the 5-man fronts and they were using Zach Bond on the edge and they were, I mean, just Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond just playing great. I mean, really the first half, they gave up a 3rd and 9, a 3rd and 8. Like that was like the only thing I was really nitpicking at when it came to the defense. But we were getting beat the previous couple weeks because, you're only rushing a few guys. You're not rushing that much. And you double team on Jalen Carter, you double team on Jordan Davis. And it was very easy for offenses because our edges can't get pressure. That's the reason why. So it literally just You could just use 4 guys on 2, and then your edge guys get those one-on-ones. They can't do anything. So now I think with the 5-man front now, and this is why I think Devin White should be playing, because I feel like you should play Devin White. I don't know why he's a healthy scratch for week 2. I already think,
and not even active. That's the crazy thing.
Well,
I think he's on the trade block. That's me right now.
You know what I think? I think he's the Rashad Penny of linebackers. That's what I think. Like I think he's
you're not even giving him a chance.
No, if they don't like what they see in practice, they're not going to give him a chance. Like maybe he's just that cooked that he can't.
He was the starter up in like halfway through training camp. So
I don't believe when Vic Fangio said, "Oh yeah, like Nakobe Dean like beat out Devin White from the start to finish the training camp." I don't believe that. I think he's just saying that.
Yeah, he was taking first team reps. We know
but
that.
But when you're seeing Isaiah Rodgers start at cornerback too, the whole entire camp, you're thinking he's gonna start. And look, I think they like. Look what Quinyon Mitchell's done. I mean, he's top 5 in deflections. I mean, he's fantastic. I mean, you're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, but I mean, he's been great.
Well, you know what that is right there. That's the definition of someone losing their job just because they were hurt week 1. He was penciled in as that second cornerback, and Quinyon Mitchell was like, "Listen, I'm ready to play," and he's proved to be one of the best cornerbacks, not only on the team, in the fucking league. So it's like,
but when Slay went down yesterday, they played Ringo over Isaiah Rodgers, which was a little surprising.
Well, he does now. Rodgers doesn't play the right. He doesn't play the right side. That's why he only plays that side. That's the only reason why. And Ringo got cut. I mean, I can't even play. I mean, you get thrown into a game. You haven't played since preseason. Like, what do I? You know what I mean? What do I expect?
They went right after him, which was the smart thing to do for them.
But, exactly.
But yeah, Quinyon Mitchell was an absolute stud of a pick. And you know, I bashed it at first because he's coming from Toledo, and I wanted Cooper DeJean in that spot. But the fact that we got both of them, like I said this all offseason, it's just the perfect situation. And Quinyon Mitchell, he looks polished already, and he's just gonna get better.
Yeah, I think what made me nervous too is that even the Quinyon Mitchell pick, because I liked his physicality. His Senior Bowl was fantastic. But I think part of it was like Nick Sirianni's college roommate was the head coach of Toledo or some shit. That already made me uncomfortable. So I was like, it was a friendly type thing going on. But I mean, like, I think the secondary is the Eagles obviously have put more resources into their secondary, which the Eagles never do. Like, this is the first year where we're saying, holy shit, like our defensive line is pretty lackluster. Yeah. Like, this is the first time in a while. Like, we've always had the depth. We've always had to rely on the defensive line, to make sure this, the secondary isn't getting exposed every single game, but they're playing fast, they're playing gritty, they're playing tough. And this is, if they keep playing like this, I mean, you're talking like some fixable shit on offense, like little tiny things they could fix just to kind of match that and what they could do every game. It's
how many backups were in, like that absolutely shocked me on that final drive. Paris Campbell, even Johnny Wilson got a first down. Britt Covey, like all those backup players, they moved the chains. They weren't just catching the ball for 2 yards. At least 3 of them kept drives alive on 3rd down. Mm-hmm. Joey, were you shocked by that? I feel like our backups never, and of course the offensive line with Steen and Fred Johnson, journeyman, they came in and played well. Like, was that surprising to you? I feel like our backups never produce in the big moment when we need them.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like Jeff Stout on the offensive line, I mean, it's Fred Johnson's been a project, and he played really good. Tyler Steen went in there, played really good. So the difference maker to this offense, the best move they made, and I think we're all going to agree, it's Saquon Barkley. It's they could load the box, and a home run hit is going to happen, and it happened. I mean, Devontae Smith got hurt a play later, 65-yard touchdown. I mean, with the Giants, that what makes them so mediocre is that he was 2/3 of their offense, and on top of everything else, Saquon always had to get ready to make a move in the backfield because he always got hit in the backfield all the time. This is why he's been injured. This is why the guy will be more healthy on the Eagles, because he'll get to that second level and look what he could do. But
you said mediocre, you're being kind to the
Yeah,
Giants, right?
I mean, that's the truth. I mean, every move they've made to make that offense better. It hasn't been Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones is piggybacked off of a running back is getting more attention than a quarterback. I mean, every receiver that they signed to a big contract's been bad. They haven't had a good tight end in years. Their offensive line is always lackluster every year. They signed, free agents. The Eagles, the last time the Eagles signed a big free agent offensive lineman, I don't know when it was. I mean, that's how good the production is, going forward. But, Saquon Barkley will be that, you could load the box and there's going to be a play. There's going to be something going on. I think the one thing, if they lose Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and then one thing is Todd Bowles knows how to beat Jalen Hurts. That's going to be the big storyline going into this week with the cover zero blitz. That's all we got because we made no adjustments last year. We got killed on cover zero blitz every single time last year. Jahan Dotson really, really, really needs to have a big game, or at least more than one pass. Now that big mesh play when Dallas Goedert, those three players ran to each other. Dallas Goedert ran up the left sideline and got tackled inside the 5. Like Jahan Dotson kind of sold that with that fake pick play, and then three players ran to each other. People were saying it was lucky, but it was play design. That was a Kellen Moore play design offensive play right there. So I'm not really surprised over it. It's more like, give guys more opportunities, and with Saquon Barkley in the backfield, and obviously Jalen Hurts could extend plays. He's a weapon of his own too. So it just giving those guys more opportunities and getting it done. And I feel like I said, Jahan Dotson needs to finally be up to par with everything, and needs a bigger role this week if A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are not back. So
now, Joey, let me ask you a question. So this week's game against Tampa Bay, would you label this as not a throwaway game, but one of those games, if you lose, it's not detrimental? I know we shouldn't have lost Atlanta. That's yesterday's history. It doesn't really matter at this point. But if we go 2-2 into the bye with everything going on injury related, would you consider that not a win, but better than we think it is?
It's tough for me, man. I really feel like they really should win this game. Like I said, if they're out a lot, their two top receivers, there's only so much.
And no Lane Johnson with the concussion, probably. Right?
Yeah, you're gonna have some guys missing. Covey's out 6 weeks now with a broken bone in his shoulder.
I didn't hear
that was today. So
yep.
Now they're down another receiver, and if they're out all three, it's like you're bringing Paris Campbell up, and he got a couple catches, but nothing tremendous. They really have to have a really good game planning, and I'm not saying you have to kill Saquon Barkley every week, but how many carries do you have in this game? I totally forgot.
I think he only had 17.
Yeah, 17. I mean,
yeah,
17
you got to
carries. You're subbing Gainwell in. That's one of the biggest things. And Gainwell is a Nick thing. Yeah. Gainwell
they
coming
love
in.
Him. I think Howie loves him.
Too. He's on kick returns. I mean, what? Why?
He might be our new punt returner now.
Yeah, that makes me more afraid. You know what I mean? I think DeJean will either get a shot. Will Shipley could do double time maybe at punt return. Punt return and kick return. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. I don't want to lose this game. I really don't. But I don't want to make it an excuse either, because I think the Eagles, I think for our defense, it'll be a little bit, they shut down one of the Saints receivers, whatever his name is. I can't say his name right.
Shahid.
Yeah, they shut him down pretty good, and there's not, Chris Olave is great, obviously, but now you got Mike Evans, you got Godwin, you're gonna have another big test for the secondary.
Baker Mayfield is better than Derek Carr. Right.
Yeah, and he's playing with this is a team that's really surging forward. I didn't think Baker Mayfield would be what he really is, but
you can tell he's the leader of that team too.
Yeah, they also just got their asses kicked to the Broncos yesterday. So, at the end of the day, listen, they only scored 7 points yesterday. So this should be a winnable game, but we might be stuck with Jahan Dotson as our one. So you really never.
That would be insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have Goddard lining up at wide receiver, honestly.
Just think of it. Zach Bond is actually leading the whole entire league in tackles right now. I think with 26, 27. It's
good for him, man.
It's crazy. This is Vic Fangio's protege player. This was a role player for the Saints last year. That was a defensive end transition to an outside linebacker. We signed this guy, and I really didn't even care about it. But ever since
no one knew who he was, really.
Ever since really his Fangio's introductory press conference as a defensive coordinator for the Eagles, that was the first name he talked about. I don't know what they saw of that guy. I don't get how they go from a guy like that to signing a guy in Bryce Huff, and Fangio talked last week on he's still learning the position. What? Do you feel as if Fangio is taking players out of position? We know that Bryce Huff should not even be in pass coverage. We know Josh Sweat should never be in pass coverage. We know there's just certain guys that just they just don't fit the mold. That's why you want a more aggressive scheme with those players, because that's what they're good at. Quinyon Mitchell took out of position as well because he didn't play inside corner. You know what I mean? And now they're keeping him as an outside guy. So obviously, you talked about it earlier, that Isaiah Rodgers injury, was probably a blessing in disguise, because we probably would still be seeing Quinyon on the inside right now if he was still here. So
yeah, exactly. And it's like like I said before, we don't necessarily know where this team's going to go down the road, but I like our chances with how we're meshing together, even though we're not doing things the correct way when it comes to situational play and all the turnovers. I think Jalen Hurts had 2 turnovers yesterday. So he's really got to get that down. But at the end of the day, listen, we're 2-1. And honestly, that's really all that matters. 2-1 and wins in this league, they come very few. So you got to take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. And that's all that matters to me, honestly.
And Kyle, what we've been saying is everyone's been really, really tough on this defense. And some of it's justified, but they've played extremely well, in me and yours opinion, last week. They held Atlanta to field goals up until the end of that game, and then to hold New Orleans till 3. I mean, yeah, they're kind of like bend but don't break. But how are we shitting on the defense so much last week, and now after yesterday's game, they're not giving up that many?
Because all right, so this is the reason why we were shitting on the defense, and I wasn't. I thought they played great, but this is the reason why they shit on the defense, because no one can criticize Jalen Hurts without getting backlash. That's exactly why they shit on the defense. Jalen Hurts has been subpar to start the season. I'm sorry, he has. And he made the right throw to Goddard for the first time all season. He threw it to the sticks when you don't need to make a bomb. Just throw the right play, and that's what he did. Go watch some Tom Brady highlights. Throw it to the sticks. Don't throw it 25 yards down the field when you need 2 yards. You don't need to do it. So
let your playmakers make plays, run yak yards, run after catch.
Yeah. Kellen Moore is all part of the short passing game. That's why I talked when I texted Nitro. I was like, well, it seems like the first half has been more Nick, and the second half is Kellen Moore. I feel like there's a total difference on how they use players, substitutions, stuff like that. I feel like in the first half they were barely using middle of the field. I didn't see anything crossing middle of the field. Second half, a lot more crossers, a lot more stuff, mesh concepts, things like that going on in the second half. So I'm having a big issue with this head coach, and sooner or later, I think that Saquon Barkley touchdown. I honestly don't think Nick is going to get fired unless it gets really bad. I think possibly it could happen, and I think they'll make Kellen Moore the interim head coach to the 2025 head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's just me. I think you have to keep the problem is with this offense, you have to keep all your play calls in house. And because Kellen Moore, look, at the end of the year, if he goes for another OC job, you could block it. If he goes for a head coaching job, you can't block him for getting a head coaching job because it's a promotion. So I don't think you demote Nick to assistant head coach or anything like that. If you have a good year, it just makes us look really fucking bad. But it's just,
and you brought up a good point there. I'm going to ask you this question and maybe a couple more before we get out of here, because Scotty has to leave for work. But at the end of the day, do you think if Kellen Moore does get other head coaching opportunities, and it's noted that some of these teams want him, do you think they'd have a really tough decision keeping Nick Sirianni if he were to leave? And that's a consistent thing that's been happening with us. We sign all these offensive coordinators that it's like a carousel. They go in, they go out. They go in, they go out. Because
who's been the constant? Who's been the constant person here? And it's still you're telling me Kellen Moore walks in here and everything still looks similar? Come on now. There's no way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, these coordinators like Jonathan Gannon. Like Gannon, I liked Gannon. A lot of people didn't like him, but I liked Gannon. And he's doing what he's doing with Arizona now. So these guys are smart. Shane Steichen was smart. All these guys that were signed, Frank Reich, they're smart. And it's like these coordinators, we just have a never-ending carousel of these guys that come in and come out because they're head coach material. I want these coordinators to be what they are, coordinators. Like Vic Fangio, no one's going to sign him because he's not a head coach. All right, he's going to stay here as defensive coordinator because that's what his label is. Spagnuolo on Kansas City, he's not a head coach. He's a defensive coordinator, and he's a very good one. I want coordinators that are very good at their job but can never be head coaches because that always fucks with the chemistry of this team. And, I just hope that Kellen Moore isn't another one of those where someone takes from us.
I mean, he definitely will be. I mean, if they end up as a top 5, top 7 offense, there's no way he's not going to be a head coach next year. It's just, it's also like we're like a feeding system for the rest of the league at this point, and we've been that way even under Andy Reid. Like
the writing's on the wall that I think the writing's on the wall that Kellen Moore will be the head coach because he's already tried getting this job before. He tried getting this job in 21 as well. So I mean, I think it's going to happen sooner or later. I don't know. I mean, Sirianni was brought in as the head coach to be a game planner, and I mean, he wasn't calling plays for Indianapolis. We already knew that was happening when he got here. But I think at this point he's just egotistical. He's overruling,
trying to overcompensate. Right?
He's overruling Kellen Moore on some of these decisions, and I think that's got to stop because you got to put those easy points on the board before anything. 2 weeks straight. I mean, your defense, like I said, you talk about Jonathan Gannon. Okay. Look what Jonathan Gannon, he came to Philadelphia with the Cardinals the year after. I was like, holy shit, look at how aggressive he is. I'm like, so Nick has got his hands on every damn thing. Steichen leaves, and this ego that he has where he feels like, I could handle it. You know what I mean? Last year, he couldn't give play calling to anybody else because he had such a young staff. I think the one thing they have in this building, not even at the coordinator spots, but at the positional coaching spots, he's got experienced coaches all over the place. And
Joey, question for you. Do you think it's a red flag? Coming back to last year with Brian Johnson, why didn't Nick ever take over play calling during that awful run? Like, you can't call plays better than a first-time offensive coordinator?
Yeah, it was the first few weeks. I was like, Brian Johnson just needs more time, or maybe it was we always blame preseason because they don't play the stars. I think that's another red flag that they do that they really need to stop. The one thing they did this offseason was good is I thought the practices were more demanding, but they brought minicamp back, which the Eagles haven't done since Nick was here. Dave Spadaro was taking questions from Eagle fans last year, on Twitter or whatever, and one guy asked him a question and this blew up, and he was like, oh, well, how much percentage does Nick have control of this offense when it comes to play calling? Like, is he, what's the percentage of him game planning for the team every single week? And Dave was like, he's like, no, he game plans for every game. And then it was like, wow, it's like now he's game planning. He's giving off the playbook to Brian Johnson. Does Brian Johnson have an OC job right now? I wonder why he doesn't have an OC job, because everybody knows who's been in charge of this offense last year. He's got to stop. I figured with Brian Johnson and Shane Steichen were working together, I figured he would piggyback some plays. And even Nick, even last year, you would have thought that maybe he would have saved something from the Steichen playbook. I don't know. But he went back to his old ways, barely running the football, same old shit as usual. But it's got to stop. I mean, 17 carries for Saquon Barkley, even not even getting the receivers in the passing game, barely even that now. I mean, with DeAndre Swift last year, like, remember he was working out with the receivers all train camp, and Elliott Shore Parks was keeping stats of how many times he caught a ball, and they didn't do anything. They barely threw it. They barely threw DeAndre Swift last year. I mean, he only got 1,000 yards the second to last game of the season. It's crime. Guy should have been 1,000-yard rusher way earlier. And every time the Eagles have juice in the run game, they have a big run, and then they switch to something entirely different. They'll sub a guy out, and on the substitutions too. I thought they made things too obvious when certain players got substituted in and what play they were going to do, because teams study that shit every week when it comes to the Eagles. So now teams are going to start to have a blueprint on this offense every week. And Todd Bowles this week, he knows how to beat Jalen Hurts. Has Jalen Hurts done well against the blitz? I think he's done pretty well so far. They do some of these different plays throughout the game where he do
they
like
have hot routes now. They finally put hot
Yeah.
routes into the offense. Thank God. Seriously.
So Nick's going to get a lot of shit this week. I mean, he was probably on radio this morning and probably got a lot. He knows he's going to get shit this week. But I'm not saying that both sides have to be perfect, but they have to at least contend. Like they have to
just make the smart decision, because apparently, a lot of those going for it on fourth downs. Again, the biggest thing for me is not kicking the field goal before halftime. That was asinine. But apparently he's even going against the analytics now, is what I heard from ESPN this morning. So it's like, what are you actually doing? What is the thought process behind your decisions? And apparently you say you think of a single type of circumstance all week. Well, where's the implementation? And again, that's really concerning, because that's your only job now that apparently you have to do, even though he said, he is admitting at least, I chose to go for it on this fourth down. I told Kellen to go for it, yada, yada, yada. What is Kellen Moore here for then? He's the play caller. You can't just interrupt. Also, it's really hard to call plays. You could be a great offensive mind, but not, just not be good at calling plays. So you can't interrupt. It's the rhythm of the game with the play caller and just out of nowhere, no, go for it, don't go for it. You can't really intervene like that.
Yeah, we heard all the rumors this offseason program. We heard like that, Nick was meshing his scheme with Kellen's, like they were going to work together. And then there was another rumor was Kellen had, Nick was going to take a step back and Nick, and Kellen was going to take over everything. But I'm sorry, but it's not happening. I see Nick with this little laminated piece of paper with colors on it, and he's checking things off during the game. I feel like he's putting his plays in. I think Kellen has talked about that they're going to, put in plays that have helped Hurts last season. I don't know what has helped him last season regarding that playbook at all, because it was like a 10-play playbook. It wasn't anything extraordinarily great. But this has to change before it falls over, and it's only gonna be a matter of time where and Nick's not going to escape this every week where the defense is going to pull out. It just can't happen. Nick is all talk. Okay, it's all hype, all talk, and then behind him it's just disappointment. And then every time the players get excited to practice, and they think they're going to win, and then they lose this game. They lose a game in general. I feel like he will lose he'll lose the locker room in time. I think it's only maybe he won't this year. I don't know, but he better change his shit fast.
Exactly, man. Well, time will tell. Hopefully it doesn't. But at the end of the day, the Eagles won 15-12, and we're 2-1 to start the season. So we could choose to be negative down the road, but it's a good Eagles victory Monday, and I couldn't be happier. But without further ado,
and one last thing, the offense is way too talented to score 0 points into the fourth quarter. Come on, right?
Yeah, and Joey, thanks for coming on, and you're free to come on whenever you want. It's
I appreciate
definitely a blessing to have you on, and you're doing a fantastic job for the Eagles content creators and honestly the community in general. You and Philly 500 and people like Bronson and people like that, they're doing great for this community. So I want to thank you for coming on and keep up the good work. And hopefully we do get that second Lombardi this year. It's gonna be a challenge, especially with that guy over there in the AFC, Patrick Mahomes, doing his thing. But at the end of the day, you never know in the NFL. That's why we all love it, because it's unpredictable. But at the end of the day, again, thank you for coming on. And me and Scotty will be back on Wednesday with the Buccaneers preview.
Nice.
And with that said, fly goes fly. We're out, guys.